Hello bookworms! It's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here to bring you my non-spoiler review of Lord of Chaos by Robert Jordan, which is the 6th book in the Wheel of Time series. In the month of June, I read Lord of Chaos as part of the Wad-Along or Wheel of Time read-along that I am co-hosting with Roya from Unicorn Hunter Books. If this is the first time you're hearing about the Wad-Along, I will link my announcement video for the read-along as well as our Goodreads group down in the description box. So this is going to be a fairly vague review of this book. It's going to be spoiler-free in the sense that I'm not going to spoil anything that happens in this book, but I am going to assume that you've read the books leading up to this one. For those of you who have already read Lord of Chaos and are more interested in some spoilery discussions, then go ahead and check out my book diary that I made for this book, which is basically me going over a lot of the things that happened in this book in spoilery detail and discussing some of my thoughts I had as I was working my way through the book. So this video is for people who haven't read Lord of Chaos, but if you have read Lord of Chaos, then maybe check out that video. So I want to start by saying that I gave this book 5 stars. I think if I was doing half stars, it might have been a 4.5, but definitely rounds up to 5 for me. And I am a little bit biased in the sense that I've read a good chunk of the series before, and this part of the series is a reread for me. So the series already has a really special place in my heart. Even though this is a reread for me, I think at this point in the series moving forward, I've only read the books once, except for like the last 2 or 3, which I haven't read at all. And it's been so long since I've read these books that I'm getting to the point where things are surprising me. I'm not remembering every single detail like I had been for the first 3 or 4 books. So reading this book was a lot of fun in the sense that I knew a lot of the big plot points that were going to happen, but a lot of the details were surprises to me. Overall, I think the pacing is okay. I noticed this in the last book, Fires of Heaven, as well as this one, but the second quarter of the book seems to be where the plot drags a little bit. But what I noticed in this one is that it drags in the sense that there's not a lot of action happening, but there were quite a few really interesting reveals that happened in that second quarter. So in that sense, it wasn't slow, but I did feel like there was a lot of build-up and setup happening in that second quarter. But it was definitely worth it for the payoff that you get in the second half of the book. Speaking of the second half of the book, there were so many big reveals and big plot points that happened. There was so much going on in the second half of this book that it was almost hard to keep up with it. There were a few different character reunions that we saw that were a lot of fun to read. There were a lot more moments in this book that made me laugh than I feel like in previous books. And a lot of them, of course, were with Matt. He's definitely becoming one of my favorite characters. On prior reads, I feel like he was more of a frustrating character for me and just annoying. And he has really grown on me in this reread. There were just so many moments with Matt that had me literally laughing out loud. I'm finding on this read that the character that frustrates me the most is actually Fail, which is funny because in previous reads, she was one of my favorite characters. The last quarter was so intense and there was so much build-up towards the last big battle that occurs in this book. And the ending was definitely the most brutal ending that we've had so far in the series. And it definitely left me wanting more and wanting to know what's going to happen in the next one. My only complaint really at this point is when you're reading these books fairly close together, the world building starts to get a little bit repetitive. Robert Jordan does repeat himself a lot and often reminds the reader about world building aspects that we've been introduced to in prior books. And I mean, considering at the rate at what these books were released, I mean, people were mostly reading them years apart. So it makes sense that he would do so much reminding to the reader of things just to make sure that he wasn't losing the reader in between books. But as someone who is reading them close together, and these are also mostly rereads, some of the repetitive nature of the world building does get a little bit boring. But I just have to keep in mind that that was needed at the time when these were being released. Well, I think those are all of my non-spoilery thoughts on The Lord of Chaos. If you've read the series up until this point, I hope you choose to continue reading it because this is probably my all-time favorite series and I can't help but recommend it to you. After you've read the book, come back and check out my book diary so you can see all of my spoilery thoughts on the many things that happen in this installment of the series. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you like bookish content. I post 1 to 2 times a week, especially if you're a Wheel of Time fan, because with the Wad-Along that I'm co-hosting, I'm definitely posting a lot of Wheel of Time content this year. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye. So the series already has a really in my so it has been so much fun to go into so it has been so much fun read. There were quite a few and I mean considering the I mean and I mean I say continue because if you're bleh, bye.